He nodded to the elder of the two gentlemen, who had glanced up to see what was keeping him.
"Harry, thank you for coming,"
he said, holding his stomach and climbing to his feet with a painful wince. John Pym, leader of the house, was a portly but pale man of medium height, his grey hair brushed back in waves from his calm, intelligent face. Vane shook his hand, took the proffered chair, and nodded to the second man, who returned the briefest of acknowledgments. Oliver St. John, brilliant lawyer and Solicitor General, taciturn to the point of rudeness. Pym was the talker, the gifted diplomat who could stitch the most diverse political and clerical elements of the country into an easy alliance against their king. The unlikely triumvirate had lashed themselves to the rudder of Parliament's fortunes, and if ever again Charles Stuart marched into London a free man, there would be few ahead of them in the queue for the scaffold. Pym made himself comfortable again, and handed the younger man a crumpled news sheet. Another defeat? Vane scanned the Royalist pamphlet with his quick, large eyes. They were no strangers here to bad news. Unwelcome reports of desperate routs, shattered hopes, scattered armies. They had all felt the icy fingers of miserable defeat, heard the whispers in the dim corridors of Westminster, black swarming crickets heralding another disaster, drowning out the heady, rollicking debates in the House. Vane remembered the dark days after Edgehill, the opening battle in their great crusade, their great crusading host shot down in smoke and ruin, the wings, rank upon rank of russet cavalry, shredded and shorn, its bare belly charged and piked and charged again. Only the Earl of Essex's infantry had held firm, clinging to the slope like bloodied wrestlers, fighting their Royalist counterparts to a standstill until night had swept down over the hills to whisk the light of battle from their bleary, sooty eyes. Edgehill, where the war of words had grown teeth and claws, turned on the talkers and rounded on ranters alike. Please God, no more Edgehills.
Mercurius Aulicus, one of their scurrilous new sheets, printed at the King's Court in Oxford and smuggled into the capital under the skirts of some trollop,
Pym recited. Vane looked up at the small man, the flames picking out the heavy shadows under his tired blue eyes, the sunken cheekbones and slack skin around the precise, measured mouth. He had never been a strong man, and he was clearly straining his constitution, grafting 25 hours a day to keep Parliament's hold on the war as tight as possible. Just lately, his grip had been slipping, as the various Royalist successes around the country weakened the will of all but the most devoted and fanatical parliamentarian. "Reporting Waller's defeat at Ripple Field," Vane observed. "I've already heard about it. Waller was mortified, of course."
"He always is, just as Essex and Manchester are mortified when they get a drubbing. But it's not the content we are particularly concerned about. What John is trying to point out is that the enemy is stealing a march on us in the war of words, infecting their hearts and minds, undermining the people's will to fight for us. This trash is selling in Oxford for 2p. In the capital, people are paying 8p and more for it. This material is the toast of every street corner. And we are not talking about Royalist spies or sympathisers," Pym went on. "The people find this trash, as Oliver rightly calls it, far more entertaining than our own bulletins."
Well, that was hardly surprising. Vane had read parliamentarian reports which would have put an ox to sleep. Their lack of integrity and principle, and basic disregard for the gravity of this situation, is typical of their cavalier attitude, Vane commented dutifully. Precisely what we have taken up arms against. Even amongst themselves, parliamentary hardliners were careful to spare the king as much direct criticism as possible. They said His Majesty was badly advised, that his evil counsellors kept vile pacts with the devil, or worse, the Pope. His wife, Henrietta Marie, was French, a devout Catholic who had urged His Majesty into this terrible folly of war, promising aid from France, Spain, and the Empire if necessary. Unfortunately for the king, his kindly, well-wishing brother monarchs were already up to their necks in blood as the German wars raged from one end of Europe to another. Charles, for the moment, would have to see to his own house, his own turbulent House of Commons. Pym held up his hand as Vane coloured, drummed his knuckles on the arm of the chair in youthful agitation.
"We know all that, Harry. We know that very well. But it must be said our bulletins, principled, honest, and well-intentioned, are about as popular out there as the Black Death."
Even St. John was